research project. So first we're going to talk about two different biological and physical theories and then compare them. So Bronfenbrenner's theory of ecological systems is based on individuals' relationships with their environment and how certain aspects of their environment affect them in different ways and how they all kind of spread out and how some correlate more and some correlate less. While Vygotsky's theory focuses on how children construct their own knowledge and beliefs on the world through those around them. So in comparison and how they differ, while these theories in summary sound very similar, both are focused on how one's surroundings affect and build an individual through development. But they're also very different in how they view this. So Bronfenbrenner's approach is focused on how much one can affect an individual's development through the relationship of one another. He created this model to show how certain areas and people in one's life can have a stronger impact on an individual's life than others and how they all correlate. While Vygotsky's theory focused on how an individual develops their knowledge on things through those around them and how they develop will rely less on those and when and how they develop. They'll rely less on those around them for help. So as they age, they will need less instruction and less guidance. He also created a module to explain this theory where there are tiers, kind of like a step stool, but the tiers represent the development of the individual and the phases of support and influence others have on them during this time, while Bronfenbrenner's theory is kind of a circle with the individual in the middle and the constant influence that these other areas have on their life and how much of an influence it has. Okay, so now for cognitive theories, we're going to be doing the same thing. So Piaget's pre-operational theory focuses on at what age in development the individual be able to perform certain cognitive abilities and at what stage means for the individual. While Vygotsky's theory focuses on at what age the individual will be able to perform certain tasks and how much outside support they will need to perform these cognitive abilities. So Piaget's pre-operational theory is similar in many ways to Vygotsky's theory due to how both focus on levels of cognitive development and at what stage an individual will be able to perform certain tasks and be able to operate in a certain way. Well, they're also different because of what each theory hones in on. Vygotsky's theory focuses on the outside support of an individual and at each stage how much support they need and how it lessens, while Piaget's focus is on the individual itself without mentioning the support, the outside support needed in each area. So now on to socio-emotional theories. We have Erikson's industry versus inferiority theory, which focuses on the different stages of socio-emotional development in an individual and what priorities and influences an individual has at each stage. And then we're going to compare that to Kohlberg's theory, which focuses on each level of moral reasoning an individual goes through and creates levels to each one. So in summary, these two are generally similar. Just what we kind of find with all, they're kind of generally similar, but kind of differentiate in certain aspects. But each theory focuses on a different form of development. So Erikson's focuses on the individual influences around themselves and how in each stage of development these influences affect the individual and how the influences change in each stage as well. While Kohlberg's focuses on how morally and individuality can be influenced through certain stages and how in each stage these influences can change as well. So both these theories lead to the same viewpoint of like the highest level, though, which is themselves being the ones they rely on in their own influence. Okay, so biological influences on development. So two biological influences on one's development could be at the rate which one develops. If someone physically develops earlier than their peers, this can cause them to act older, join in with older crowds, and feel like they don't really belong in their certain age group, which might cause them to rely more physically on themselves throughout their life than others. In the same realm, those who develop later on can feel ostracized from their peers and insecure about themselves and feel like they don't fit in their age group as well. This can cause them to skip out on opportunities and not be confident within themselves, which also can carry on throughout development. And one place that we see this, the first example, is in Annalise's case study, which shows the effects of early development on an individual and how she resorted to acting older and hanging out with older crowds and beginning to do things that another person at her age wouldn't necessarily do. So psychological influences on development. One's relationship with their family can influence someone's development. If their family is supportive in their choices and isn't overbearing while still looking out for them, they'll feel more confident with themselves and find it easier to make decisions due to this confidence. Another psychological influence on one's development is one's relationship with their peers. Um, if someone has a healthy relationship with their friends and feels supported and feels like they have a community that they can rely on, it'll improve pretty much all aspects of their development due to like the socialization, cognitive growth, activity, and just like social awareness. We can see the negative impact a family can have on one's development through Leo's study and him struggling with certain aspects of his development, like sleeping properly, and his anxiety due to the changes in his family and how the lack of stability in his family life resulted in these issues in him. So now we're going to be talking about certain research methods. So the first one is most general, an experiment, which an experiment can be used to test a variety of different things by having a variable that is subject to change and a variable that isn't, and then comparing the results. An example of an experiment is Pavlov's classical conditioning experiment, which I have a little diagram here of how that would actually work. But it's where you take an individual or a thing and give them a stimulus and an unconditioned stimulus, and then use these to create a conditioned response through doing it over and over again until they have like a reflex in their brain being like, oh, when I hear the bell ring, I'm going to get food. And so when you hear the bell ring, like the conditioned response would be the dog like salivating. Okay. Another research method is cross-sectional research, which we heard a lot about in all of our case studies, which is basically when someone would compare individuals of different ages all at the same time. So you would take a group, this could be like through a survey, and you survey people of all different ages and ask them like the same questions to discover a certain answer, a certain, result. So this could be used when you're trying to discover the different emotional reactions an event would cause on different ages, or as like I said, anything if you take a survey or if you take people in a certain room of all different ages and you give them the same like medication and see how it affects every single person. So things like that. And then a longitudinal study is kind of like the opposite of that. It's still seeing how things are affected in different ages, but it's with one person and studied over a long period of time. So this could be used to discover the effects of an individual without a familial influence, like kind of how we see throughout Leo's development of him when he was a child and how he was developing normally, and then he started experiencing some rough patches when him and his mom got divorced and separated. So here's some normative physical developments that we've seen throughout all these case studies and all the chapters. So normative physical activity is a big one, which is needed throughout all ages. In early development, like like early adolescence It's focused more on motor development and making sure each point is reached at the correct time. Then through early adolescence and late adolescence, it's focused more on physical activity to maintain being healthy and a healthy weight, which would range from 2 hours of physical activity, also to control energy. And then this would slowly depreciate to around 30 minutes of intermediate physical activity in late adulthood, which would be used to maintain mobility and just to increase blood flow. And also physical activity is known to help cognitive function as well. So overall physical activity is really good, not just for physical development. Another one is sleep. So sleep is normative and throughout development, but it's normative for it to fluctuate as well. So in infancy and early development, it's normal to have about or to need about 11 to 13 hours of sleep per night, as well as taking naps throughout the day, which will also begin to depreciate by age 13. And by age 13, the normal amount of sleep has declined to about 9 hours per night. And then in early through middle adulthood, it averages from 7 to 9 for a normative amount of sleep needed for one's development. Another side effect, like a deficit of sleep, can greatly impact one's development in day-to-day life, causing mood swings, depression, and just many other effects that can affect you negatively cognitively, and yeah, just affect like your quality of life as well. So another normative physical development is sexual activity and the increased interest in that. So in adolescence, it's normal to have an increase interest in sexual activity. During puberty, individuals will notice themselves developing a stronger sense of self and more interest in sexual activities, while over half of adolescents has participated in sexual activities within by 12th grade. It's considered normal to have participated in sexual activities earlier as well. While it's normal to participate in sexual activities at an earlier age, it could be negative due to the strong correlations of teen pregnancy due to having participated in sexual activity earlier. There's a correlation of 50% of teen pregnancy occurring within the 6 months of being first sexually active. So normative cognitive developments. It's normal in early development for children to have a hard time communicating what they're feeling for many reasons. So children at a young age will have difficulty differentiating their thoughts and views, and how they're different than the people around them. This will change through development, as well as develop a sense of self and others, and are able to understand not everyone has the same thoughts. So an example of this would be the case study with the kid talking and playing make-believe about being an astronaut and dinosaurs, and getting frustrated when his parents didn't understand what he was talking about because he didn't understand that they have different thoughts than him. So that is normative. So another common struggle with cognitive development is when children get upset about easily solved issues or are tricked easily by others. We can refer to the cookie trick in Leo's case study, where he's not yet developed conservation and is not able to differentiate the change occurring with the cookie, and how even though it has the same amount of pieces, the size is different. Like when his brother takes 2 cookies and breaks them apart and gives him like a quarter of one and half of one, and he thinks he has 2 when his brother really has more, even though he still has 2 pieces as well. That is normative, and eventually they will develop more of like an object permanence. So the theory of mind and developing around age 4 that others have different thoughts is normative. Is also normative for bilingual children. to develop this earlier as well as understanding others' emotions. We see this being shown in case study 3 when the child is bilingual and he is easier able to soothe his emotions and communicate his emotions due to being bilingual and having that language part in his brain developed more. So, normative socio-emotional developments. Developing self-understanding is normative in middle and late childhood. This can be shown in many factors. The growing ability to control emotions and self-soothe in certain scenarios. This can also be revealed in the comparison of themselves to others, which can be shown by how they describe themselves in comparison to those around them. We see this being displayed in one of the case studies when the boy compares himself to his friend who is good at math, and he's also being compared and comparing himself to his group of friends who he plays like games with and plays soccer with, and how he gets more upset than them when things happen during it and compares himself to them in that way as well. So, gender effects on life course. Gender has a strong role in one's life course. It affects what they do, how they act, how they view themselves and others. While it is important and can alter one's life course, gender and the importance of views of it can be altered by the values and views of one's parents' attributes to it. If an individual is raised to see gender in a positive or negative way, or a stronger and debilitating way, this will affect the individual greatly, and they will see themselves in these ways subconsciously or not. Ethnicity and effects on life course. Ethnicity can have many effects on one's life course due to familial values and morals, changing the individual values and morals as well. This can affect one's decisions as well as one's development due to how different ethnicities value certain aspects of their child. Class effects on life course. Class can also have a strong effect on one's life course, especially if one falls in the lower class. In the lifespan development book, in chapter 3, we're going to learn about life expectancy and malnutrition rates of impoverished areas, and how even if you live through these phases, malnutrition can have cognitive effects on one's development as well. Historical period to life course. Historical period has shown to affect one's life course, altering one's values, one's morals, and one's lifestyle. This can be shown through the late adulthood case study with Robert, through how he has strong values and ties to his community and family, and is proud of where he came from and all the hard work he did to create his business. And these are my sources. Thank you. I have to figure out how to stop this video though. I don't know how to.